The Life of Patsy Poole, written and narrated by Lauren Poole. To know her is to love her. This is exactly how I would describe my grandma, Patsy Poole. My whole life, I've admired her tremendously. She is the most selfless, optimistic, and kind woman I know. From a very young age, Patsy was taught how important family and love really is, and once she had a family of her own, she taught her children this too, and now her grandchildren as well. She has created an atmosphere of overflowing love and security in my family, and I have learned so much from my grandma, and truly aspire to be more like her every day. Part 1: Early Childhood. Patsy was born on March 6, 1944 in El Dorado, Illinois, to her parents Lloyd and Okla Horton. Patsy was raised in Carmi along with her two brothers Charles and Joe Horton. Growing up on holidays, she remembers how her mother would always gather their whole family together. Part 2: High School. Although Patsy was quiet and kept to herself in high school, she had a best friend, Sandra Barbary. Sandra moved to Peoria after high school, and Patsy recalls her passing a few years ago, but says, "We kept in touch and she would come see me every time she could. She was very special to me."
What would people you know find surprising about you as a teenager?
Well, be honest, I didn't go very many dances. I went to maybe one in high school. I could say that I was kind of different. I wasn't into that. But I had a lot of friends and enjoyed high school.
Mrs. Vaughn, who taught typing and shorthand, was Patsy's most influential teacher. Patsy says she was very special and always so caring and smiling and greeting you when you came through the door. Part 3: Young Adulthood. Shortly after graduating from high school, Patsy met Keith Poole, who worked for the city of Carmi, and is now her husband. For this reason, she never actually attended college. She says, "Back then it seemed like no one really went to college, you would just get married and raise a family." Part 4: Finding Love and Starting a Family. As previously mentioned, Patsy met her husband Keith after she graduated, and the story of how they met is pretty memorable.
Yeah, how did you guys meet?
Well, we met at the Dairy Queen, and his sister was my age, and we went to the Dairy Queen to have lunch, and her brother come by, and after he left, I said, "That's your brother." She said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, I'd like to have a date with him. I like him." So she fixed it up, and I had a date with him, and that's the one I married.
A few years after their marriage, Keith and Patsy decided to start a family of their own. They first had a daughter, Cynthia Poole, who they called Cindy. Next, they had a son, Ronald Poole, who they called Craig, which is my father. Being a mother is one of the many things that Patsy does well and takes a lot of pride in. Part 5: Motherhood and Influential People. When I asked my grandma what her goal is as a parent, she replied, "Well, I always try to be there. No, I'm not perfect, but I always just try to be there for my kids when they need me. I've made them birthday cakes every year they've had a birthday, and I'm proud of that." Patsy was and still is an outstanding mother, and growing up, she was led by two wonderful examples.
In what ways have your parents influenced you?
Well, they was a great influence to me. They always took me to church, and they read their Bibles in front of me, and they would say the prayers at the table, and they took us to church, and they really had a great impact upon my life.
Part 6: Throughout the Years. Patsy has been fortunate enough to gain several grandkids and even great-grandkids over the years. Before her unfortunate passing in 2016, her daughter Cindy married and had a daughter, Brianna. Craig also eventually married and now has 3 daughters, Jordan, Haley, and Lauren. Being a grandmother is one of the things Patsy is best at. She is so patient, loving, and kind, and her granddaughters look up to her so much more than she knows. Patsy now not only has her granddaughters looking up to her, but her great-grandkids as well, Lexus, Cheyenne, and Levi. Patsy enjoys keeping busy and likes to be out in the sun or working in the yard. She also spends a lot of time in her kitchen, Pat's kitchen as her grandkids call it. Every holiday, most birthdays, and even on random weekdays, Patsy's kitchen is full of lots of laughter and sweet aromas of mashed potatoes, chocolate chip cookies, and sweet tea. Part 7. Life Today. Keith and Patsy have now been happily married for 60 years. I look up to them both and their love for each other tremendously.
What does the word family mean to you?
Well, it means a lot. Being together and being a family, love is something that's really important. That's something money can't buy. And my parents taught me that love is the most important thing.
Patsy is such a wonderful example for her family of what it means to be patient, humble, loving, and a follower of Jesus. She brings so much joy to our family, and we have no idea what we would do without her.
What are the main lessons that you've learned in life?
Not to think of self only, that we need to think of other people around us and show more love.
That is advice that perfectly represents the woman my grandma is, and is truly something she lives by. She has a humble and empathetic heart, and I adore her greatly, and I hope someday to be at least half the woman she is.